The real politics and power of women's hair being used as a form of protest. Also, I want to talk a lot about pretty privilege, which is another sort of hotly debated topic all over the internet, to be honest, but specifically on TikTok, because I feel like every single topic is hotly debated over there. So I feel like an episode of Teletubbies would probably be hotly debated on TikTok. But what being conventionally attractive really means in the 21st century, and how conventional beauty norms are so rigid and stiff and constraining that even if you step a single toe out of line, for example, cutting your hair short, it will completely change the way that people perceive you. And this idea of almost performing femininity for your own benefit. What does that really mean? Who does it really impact? Will that benefit women as a whole, or is it just another individualistic approach to patriarchy and feminism and misogyny? Buzzword, buzzword, buzzword! And just before we get into it, I would love to thank Valessa for sponsoring today's video. You guys already know how it is. If you follow my channel, follow me on social media, you guys all know how much I love working with Valessa. They are a by women, for women sexual wellness brand. And today I am going to show you guys a few of their toys. They sent me even more toys. They're spoiling me rotten. Just before we give each individual toy their time to shine, what I really love about Valessa is they have a real wide range of toys. They have a wide range of toys that don't necessarily have to go, because as a girly who has vaginismus, sometimes nothing's getting up there, and that's absolutely fine. That does not mean that I don't deserve pleasure. And also what I really love about all Valessa toys, oh my god, my hands are so full, they come in these very discreet, rechargeable cases. They charge the toys. Not only do they keep your toys charged, but the packaging's really discreet and it keeps your toys clean and dust free as well. The first toy I'm going to show you guys is the Demi Wand. I've showed you guys this before. It's their most versatile toy, and what I really like about it is it's got a very long handle, so it's really easy to use. It's also very accessible as well for all bodies and body types. And Valessa sent me two of their new toys to show you guys. The first one is the thumb. First of all, love the color. This is a very classy color. She's an all-star. She really, really has it all. She vibrates, she suctions, she thumps. This toy utilizes Valessa's improved pleasure jet technology, making this toy perfect for external use, perfect for girlies. And the last toy I have to show you guys is a toy that, is... But if you guys probably notice, it's similar to the Air 5 Pro, which I do like because it's quite small. But this one's crazy because it simulates a human tongue. Was it an article from The Sun where they said that we'd be having robots by 2025? This is what they were talking about! Not only does this toy cover all bases, and it's a beautiful colour, but it's also silent and waterproof. And very excitingly, I'm holding another giveaway with Valessa. I think this is my third giveaway that I've run with them, and you guys eat it up every single time. Valessa are sending out free toys and gift cards to anybody who signs up to our giveaway. So make sure you click the link in the description to sign up. And thank you again, Valessa, for sponsoring today's video, and let's get into it. Anne Hathaway, Doja Cat, Jennifer Lawrence, Emma Watson, Halle Berry, Miley Cyrus, Katy Perry, Kristen Stewart, Demi Lovato, Amanda Stenberg, Halsey, Shailene Woodley, Brie Larson. This is just a handful of celebrities where public favour really turned against them after they cut their hair short. Now, I knew that this was going to be a little bit of a difficult video to make because I know a lot of people's knee-jerk response is to say, well, X celebrity's done this problematic thing and X celebrity's done that problematic thing. And I'm not sitting here trying to claim that these celebrities have never done anything problematic in their careers or in their lives, but rather celebrities that don't meet conventional beauty standards to a T get held to a much different standard than celebrities that do. And people in general. This doesn't just apply to celebrities, but celebrities, they are my... Oh, this is going to annoy me. There's a word. I'm going to say jumping off point, but there's definitely a better word for it, and I know that I'm going to realise it whilst Kat's editing this. This is going to be so good. And I'm not saying that people should never criticise these celebrities or celebrities who cut their hair short. I want to try and have a more nuanced conversation than that. And that conversation is, these celebrities started to be perceived differently. Their actions began to be perceived differently after they cut their hair short because they no longer fit conventional beauty standards. And as I said earlier, this doesn't just apply to celebrities, it applies to people too. People who meet conventional beauty standards get perceived and treated completely differently than people who don't. Case study. The word, that was the word, case study. And it feels absurd to be having this conversation in reference to these women and non-binary people, because these celebrities are some of the most beautiful people in the entire world. They have the resources, the money, the staff, the time to meet conventional beauty standards and beauty norms, and even create them sometimes. But by using these celebrities as a case study, rather than calling them unattractive, I'm trying to firstly draw attention to how rigid modern day beauty standards are, that even if you step a toe out of line, even if you meet them in every other way, but you have a short haircut, it will change the way that people perceive you. I think it can be difficult to have conversations about pretty privilege, because I think pretty privilege is still a bit of a contentious debate about whether it's real or not. I think the reason why there's this debate in the first place is I think a lot of people perceive privilege as protection, right? Protection against discrimination, protection against violence, socioeconomic protection. But being pretty as a woman, being pretty does not protect you from gender-based violence, which is why a lot of people argue that pretty privilege doesn't exist. But I think two things can be true at once. Yes, pretty privilege does not protect you from gender-based violence, but you can still benefit from being pretty, and your beauty can still give you privilege, even if it doesn't protect you. From what I've seen in most cases, the people who argue that pretty privilege isn't real, I'm assuming have been perceived as beautiful their entire lives, so they don't know what it's like to not have that privilege. And the people who tend to be the loudest when it comes to pretty privilege being real are people who have been on both sides of the fence, and that includes me. When I was in school, I was not perceived as pretty at all. I was actually called ugly on a semi-regular basis. And when I sort of hit my late teens and early 20s, I sort of began to pretty up a little bit. By pretty up, I got, had bleach blonde hair, long extensions, used to wear full glam makeup every single day. And after this transformation, the way that I got treated was completely different. And it's not even necessarily that I used to get, hit on more, which to be fair I did. It was more that people would actually listen to what I was saying, people would actually talk to me, boys would actually talk to me, like friends of, a guy that I was seeing at the time or my partner would actually make an effort to have a conversation with me. It literally gave me whiplash. It was the craziest thing. But personal anecdotes aside here, pretty privilege is rooted in what's called the halo effect, where if an individual is perceived positively in one aspect of their life, they are assumed to possess other positive traits. And research backs this up as well. If you are conventionally attractive, you are more likely to be perceived as sociable, funny, kind, athletic, trustworthy, and competent than your unattractive counterparts. So if we just circle back to what this video is all about, which is female celebrities becoming villainized once they cut their hair short. If we just use Jennifer Lawrence as an example, she really had this sort of relatable shtick going on in the early 2010s. She loved pizza and fell over when she wore high heels. She's actually really real for that. But I noticed, looking back, I did not notice it at the time. I literally had about 4 brain cells knocking around in there. When she had long, flowing blonde locks, she was seen as relatable and genuine and funny and real. But once she cut her hair off, all of a sudden her relatable personality became annoying and calculated and cringe and fake. But I don't think that it always stems from no longer fitting attraction norms. The girl that was doing my nails yesterday, actually, Suki Nails. Nail check! Ta-da! At Suki Nails on Instagram, I'm gonna get nails done. Highly recommend, North London babe. She brought up this really interesting point whilst I was getting my nails done yesterday, and that is that in media, at least in media sort of in the 90s and the early 2000s, often when a man would be cheating on their partner or nearly cheating on their partner, the mistress would be this woman with short hair. Short dark hair, almost very vixen-like. I think about when Chandler's co-worker propositioned him for an affair. She had short dark hair. I think of when Joey's girlfriend cheated on Joey with Chandler and then cheated on Chandler. She had short dark hair as well. I don't necessarily think that cutting your hair short means that people immediately perceive you as less attractive. It can mean that, but I also think that people perceive your attraction in a different way. They perhaps perceive you as more threatening, more sexualized, rather than the girl next door. They now view you as vixen. Rather than seeing you as someone who is happy-go-lucky, they see you as someone who's calculated. That is the power that women's hair holds. But if we just circle back to pretty privilege and the halo effect for a second, pretty privilege plays a huge part in the workplace. I read this really interesting article by Ashlyn Chang, Pretty Privilege at Work. She gathers a lot of information about how women tend to think that our barriers of entry is going to be our gender, right? Because duh, stairs in gender pay gap, duh. But beauty has become yet another barrier of entry that women have to leap over. Chan quotes a study from ESA World of Labour, which finds that attractive workers earn around 10 to 15% more than average looking workers. And sometimes this is rooted in interviewers going like, hubba, hubba. But usually it's not. I mean, maybe it is. I don't know, but it doesn't all just boil down to your boss or the person that's interviewing being like, woo! But rather, attractive people are more likely to have higher levels of confidence. Therefore, they're more likely to perform better in evaluations and interviews, etc. The halo effect and pretty privilege bleeds outside of the workplace, though. A 2012 paper found that attractive real estate agents outperform more homely ones. Homely is so rude. Sorry, if I found out that someone referred to me as homely. Students are more likely to perceive their teachers as better at their jobs the more attractive they are. University students are more likely to perceive their lecturers as more capable and clearer the more attractive they are. And this flips the other way too, because teachers are more likely to call on the kids that are cuter. And to quote Mark Travers for Forbes in an article about the pretty privilege paradox, in a 2017 study, female students earned lower grades in online courses than they did in in-person classes. Similarly, in a 2022 study, the grades of attractive female students declined when offline classes switched to online instruction. And even more horrifically, what I found out whilst filming this video was that people are more likely to perceive you as less human the less attractive you are. It's much easier to dehumanize someone in your brain the less conventionally attractive they are. But being a conventionally attractive woman in the workplace is a double-edged sword. Femininity is often associated with incompetence. The long, thick, flowing locks that we associate with conventional beauty standards and femininity may hinder a woman in a male-dominated workplace. Many women who work in male-dominated spaces decide to cut their hair short, but not too short, sort of like bob length, in order to seem more professional or to be taken more seriously. To quote Paris Hashampour for Refinery 29, as it turns out, I got off lightly. 25-year-old Eva was working as a stockbroker when she cut her hair from hip to bob length in a bid to be taken more seriously in male-dominated board meetings. Instead, male co-workers made lewd jokes and even asked if she had sought her boyfriend's permission beforehand. It was the kind of environment where everything was turned into a sexual remark, she told me. They made it clear that while they preferred long hair, mine wasn't too bad because it was still grabbable. I wasn't impossible to have with. And to quote Paris again, but women face a double bind. Long hair might make you beautiful and appealing to men, but it won't get you far in the workplace. Mary Bock, a professor at the University of Texas, conducted research on the presentation of broadcast journalists in the US. She found that smooth, short to medium length hair seems to be almost like a uniform, and concluded the implicit message is that this is what professional looks like. Ivanka Trump's latest haircut echoes this. Long hair is not serious. The Guardian dubbed her new trim a political bob or pop, and The Express a power bob. This is so daft. It seems that by cutting her long blonde hair short, she was forging a new image for herself and making a political statement. And of course, you can't discuss professionalism and hair in the workplace without discussing the mistreatment of black people and other people of colour in relation to their hair. Traditional black hairstyles like threads, twists, cornrows, braids, even having your hair out naturally has been deemed as unprofessional in many workplaces. Michelle Obama straightened her hair for the entirety of Barack Obama's presidency because she felt like the American public weren't ready to see her natural hair. In a study I read for this video, a Pakistani woman who had long braided hair down to her hips, which tied in deeply with her Pakistani heritage, felt like her hair was incompatible with the American workplace. Sikh men struggle in the workplace because of these strict Western rules around being clean shaven, which doesn't factor in the large subsection of the population who grow their facial hair out for religious reasons. Workplace rules surrounding hair often deeply intersect with race and religion. That entire racial and religious groups are held back from being able to apply for jobs because of these rigid, very westernized rules, because their hair doesn't align with Western professional norms. We're going to circle back to the politics of hair in just a moment, because if we just stay on this idea of women cutting their hair and how it impacts whether they're conventionally attractive or not, because as I mentioned earlier, femininity is often associated with incompetence. So the next logical step is, in order to be perceived as more competent, I should be perceived as more masculine. Therefore, maybe I should cut my hair or wear more masculine clothes or decide to bulk up at the gym. But if you're a woman, being perceived as masculine, even if it's in a small way, like with short hair, maybe you're a bit muscular, maybe you wear sort of more boxy clothes, it's perceived as unattractive. And you will face the repercussions for not fitting into conventional beauty standards. I think that not only is competency associated with masculinity for men, but also there's a lot of power in the gender binary and how the gender binary upholds the nuclear family, how it upholds the Western capitalist work system. I didn't have time to get into it, but you can see the sort of thought process I'm going through. You know, the capitalist work structure upholds that binary and it's going to reward people who also uphold that binary. And I think the binary is where at least some of the hatred towards short-haired women comes from. You know, of course misogyny probably plays a larger role, but I feel like if we just think of like male and non-binary celebrities who are perceived as more feminine, who break the binary, the gender binary, they are often perceived negatively as well. One example that I immediately think of is Justin Bieber. You know, when Justin Bieber was a teenager, when he was like 13 years old, I'm pretty sure he was the most hated person in the world, like, who was alive. This music video for Baby was the most disliked video on YouTube. I remember this was back when I had BBM, throwback to BBM. I remember on BBM there used to be like, you could change your display picture to like how much you hated Justin Bieber. I don't know why so many people hated Justin Bieber. Even I hated Justin Bieber when I was a teenager, but I think I was just trying to be like, oh, I'm not like the other girls. And I know that Justin Bieber was a heartthrob to millions of girls everywhere, but I think a lot of the hatred of him stemmed from him not fitting the gender binary. And hear me out, okay? Because not only did he have long hair, he had a high-pitched voice, he was singing songs about love, and I think that made a lot of people feel really, really uncomfortable. And you know, he sort of had that redemption arc when he cut his hair short, when he became, you know, a man because he was no longer a boy. You know, he still sung about love and stuff, but you know, I think a lot of the hatred of him was definitely rooted in the fact that he was breaking the gender binary a little bit. No, that was just a theory. I also think a lot of the hatred of him stemmed from the fact that he had a very large female audience, and he didn't fit the masculine binary at the time, but of course he didn't. He was literally a child. But if we just circle back to the girls for a second, as much of the disdain towards women who cut their hair short comes from straight men who are no longer attracted to them and they feel like they've been violated in some way. But this doesn't explain why so many straight women turn against women who cut their hair short. And I think it boils down to these women breaking the gender binary, and I think it makes people feel uncomfortable, and I think it makes people perceive them completely differently and perceive their actions differently. It makes them perceive their actions with a negative undertone. Like, the gender binary is so fragile that even if you step a toe out of line, if you cut your hair short, if you decide to bulk up at the gym, if you decide to stop wearing makeup, wear more loose-fitting clothes, it's a cause for people to start disliking you. How crazy is that? And something which really opened my eyes whilst I was researching for this video is how deeply political women's hair is. So let's get into the politics of women's hair. I feel like I've said this a million times, but hair is deeply political. Sorry, you can tell that I wrote this script and then I didn't read through it again, and I've just started filming the video because I'm on such a time crunch and I'm so stressed. I haven't been sleeping, I haven't been eating. It's gonna be okay though, guys. It's gonna be okay. I need to destroy my old life to have the pieces to build. Exactly. To quote Rose Wise, hairstyles serve as important cultural artifacts because they are simultaneously public, visible to everyone, personal, biologically linked to the body, and highly malleable to suit cultural and personal preferences. First 1973, signed in 1987. And hair can be and is used as a form of protest. So let's explore the evolution of women's hairstyles, because I'm sure this doesn't shock any of us, but hair trends and trends in general are inextricably linked with the socio-economic and political climate of the time. I use so many different websites and news publications and theses to write this video and research this video, but specifically this article on Nadia.co, how hair became a form of protest, really helped me for researching this part of this video. So together, let's make a little rough timeline of women's hair trends. Pre-20th century, women's hair specifically was associated with being animalistic to ancient Greeks and Romans. So a woman taking time to style and comb her hair was seen as a very worthy endeavour. It wasn't until the medieval times that Christianity began to have a real lasting impact on the way that women styled their hair. At this time, a veil was imposed on women in Europe as a symbol of their morality. And in the Victorian times, it was customary for, I'm assuming this is middle and upper class women, to grow their hair out super long, like all the way down to the floor. A woman's hair was seen as one of her most valuable assets, but only to be seen by her husband. When she was out and about, it would be styled sort of up and back, you know, quite an ornate fashion. And as I said, I'm assuming a lot of these hair trends apply to sort of middle and upper class women. I think when we think of tying our hair back, we think of just throwing it back to the hairband. But back in the Victorian times, did they have multi-packs of hairbands from Boots? Probably not. And again, it was very ornately styled, so it would take time and money to style it in that fashion. And many working class Victorian women probably didn't have the money nor the time to style their hair ornately, which probably led to more isolation and stigmatization. It really wasn't until like the 1920s that women began to take control of their hair. Short, blunt bobs came into style, and this was in paradigm with those very boxy flapper dresses. And someone who really pioneered short hair on women was Irene Castle, who in 1915 cut her hair short into a bob in preparation to have her appendix out, and it caused quite the ruckus. It rattled the general public, and the rattling would only continue. Teenage girls who wanted to cut their hair short but their parents wouldn't allow them would go to their family doctor and ask for a prescription for a short haircut. Fathers and husbands were threatening to take hairdressers to court for cutting their wives or their daughters' hair without their consent. And short hair continued to be a trend for women in the 1920s, the 1930s. Josephine Baker really pioneered styling edges and having short hair. I love the pictures of Josephine Baker's hair. I'm obsessed. I'm also on her Wikipedia right now, and it says she had 6 husbands. No, 4. She had 4. Queen. I would love to be a quadruple divorcee. But women taking control of their own hair was here to stay. In 1907, French chemist Eugene Schueller would create the first ever synthetic hair dye. It was under L'Oreal, which, as you can imagine, became L'Oreal Paris. And in the 1950s, it really began to hit the mainstream of using heated tools, hair dye, hairspray, rollers, tongs to style your hair. So there were loads of different hair trends in the 1950s, the 1960s, the big fonts, the sort of Marilyn Monroe short curls, but also pixie haircut was really popular, pioneered by Twiggy and Mia Farrow. You know, the 1920s onwards, hair really became about self-expression. And it was this point, and I'm sure earlier too, but from what I found online, hair really began to be used as a form of protest in the 60s and 70s, which lines up with the civil rights movement and also the Vietnam War. Hippies of the 1970s wore their hair long and uncut as a rejection of not only mainstream cultural norms, but also as a juxtaposition to the military and the army, you know, that very uniform, completely shaved head. The hippies were doing the exact opposite. They were growing their hair completely out. Black civil rights protesters like Angela Davis wore their hair naturally in an afro to rebel against Eurocentric beauty norms. And hair cutting has for years been used as a form of protest. Most recently, in 2022, 22-year-old Mahsa Amini was beaten to death by the morality police in Iran for wearing her hijab, quote-unquote, improperly. And this sparked protests all over the country where women would cut their hair in public to protest Mahsa's murder.
Take a walk through the streets of Tehran and you might be surprised by what you see. In this footage filmed for Channel 4 News, women's free-flowing hair is now as common a sight as the mandatory headscarf. The death in custody of Mahsa Amini last year, detained for supposedly not wearing her hijab correctly.
In 2014, Vivienne Westwood shaved her head to draw awareness to climate change. In 2015, actress Rose McGowan shaved her head because she no longer wanted to feel like a fantasy fuck toy. And in a way, I think Britney Spears shaving her head in 2007 was also a form of protest. She writes in her memoir, The Woman in Me, I've been eyeballed so much growing up. I've been looked up and down, had people telling me what they thought of my body since I was a teenager. Shaving my head and acting out were ways of pushing back. Hair being weaponized against people so often, it's a complete natural pipeline for hair to then, in turn, be used as a form of protest. As I mentioned earlier, people of colour are told and reprimanded regularly for the way that they style their hair. Prison guards, sergeants in the army, even serial killers. I hate talking about stuff like this, it makes me really upset. You know, serial killers and murderers, if they're holding, you know, women captive, the first thing they will do to get their morale down is shave their head. And this is on a much, much smaller scale. But when I think of women who have had their hair weaponized against them, I also think of Marsha Clark. If you don't know who Marsha Clark is, she was the lead prosecutor in the O.J. Simpson case. And she was really brutally hounded by the tabloid press. She had topless photos of her sold to the press by her ex-husband's mother. And this harassment only worsened further after she got a short haircut in the middle of the trial, you know, which further emphasized her curls, which led her to be ridiculed even further. It's honestly worth watching The People vs. O.J. Simpson just for the single scene of when Marsha walks into the courtroom after she'd had her haircut. It's absolutely gut-wrenching. If we just bring everything that we've discussed all together, the politics of women's hair, pretty privilege, the public turning against female celebrities after they've cut their hair short, the overarching theme and what links all of these together is the disruption of femininity. That's what makes people feel uncomfortable. When we were discussing pretty privilege earlier in this video and that statistic of attractive people earn more money than unattractive people, they're more likely to be perceived as friendlier and funnier and more sociable and charismatic and more athletic. When this applies to women, your attraction is based on how feminine you are. So it's the more feminine you are, the more money you make. The more feminine you are, the more likely you are to be perceived as funny and sociable. But as I mentioned earlier, it's not as straightforward as deciding to glam yourself up because you want a promotion, or deciding to get a full head of extensions and do a full face of makeup because you want people to think that you're funny. Because femininity is often associated with incompetence, and most likely, men, as in heterosexual men, will be more attracted to you, but a lot of the time men don't find women funny. It's the double bind of femininity, and we're going to talk about that in just a moment. But first of all, I just want to take a little step and talk about this idea of looking presentable, because this has been something which has really been on my mind recently, because essentially people have acclimatized to what women look like with makeup on. Not only do they see sort of made up features like overlined lips, fluttery eyelashes, rosy cheeks as being feminine, but people now associate it, men and women now associate those features with looking presentable. And when a woman who usually wears a full face of makeup decides to go without, all of a sudden they don't look presentable anymore. And this isn't the case with men, because women on average spend half an hour longer getting ready in the morning than men. And the average New York woman will spend $300,000 on makeup in her lifetime. I think I've probably spent that already. Beauty is a tax, essentially, and a lot of women don't have any other choice but to pay it. The more you lean into being conventionally attractive, the more likely your life is to improve. But I want to flesh this out a little further. I read this amazing, I think it was a thesis by Rose Wise, Women and Their Hair, Seeking Power Through Resistance and Accommodation. Rose is specifically writing about women's hair, but these arguments and thoughts can be applied to resisting conventional beauty standards in general, or whether to accommodate to them, and the benefits and pitfalls of both. And in terms of hair, by accommodating, Rose is talking about, wearing your hair long and maybe getting a full head of highlights, getting a little bit blonde up in there. But as I mentioned earlier, there is a double bind of femininity. Yes, you may be treated nicer, but being a bit too feminine, meeting the conventional beauty standards a little bit too much, can hinder your career. But in instances where accommodating does benefit your career, you're accommodating to conventional beauty standards, but not too much. You're in a full face of makeup, but you've got brown hair. This is only an individualistic benefit. Yes, as a woman, you may feel like you're taking advantage of this misogynistic system, but even if you aren't the person in control, your benefit is still coming at the impediment of women who don't meet those conventional beauty standards. Not all women can afford to invest the time or money or effort into their appearance, and even if they do, sometimes they still don't meet conventional beauty standards. So what then? But resisting is not as simple as it sounds. Resisting conventional beauty standards can lead you to lose work, to be perceived in the world in a completely different way. Some women don't have the financial stability, the means to take that risk. Sometimes resisting conventional beauty standards can lead to physical violence. If you live in an area or a country where if you cut your hair short it's stereotyped as being a lesbian, you could be in danger of physical violence and a hate crime, and you could be putting yourself into some real danger. Something really interesting that Rose Whites discovered in her research was that she was specifically researching and writing about women's hair, and when she asked her white participants if hair mattered, nearly all of them responded no, or that they don't even think about it. But every participant of colour responded the complete opposite, that hair really did matter to them. And I think that boils down to the fact that a lot of women of colour don't have the privilege to not think about their hair. But just because a lot of women don't have the means to resist conventional beauty standards doesn't mean that every single woman just confines herself to the norms of femininity. I feel like we can't talk about disrupting femininity without talking about queer women and butch lesbians. I'm queer myself, but I obviously don't know everyone's opinions on usage of the term butch. I'm not butch, but also I've never seen it as an insult, and a lot of the articles and the research that I was using, a lot of butch women identified themselves as butch. I read this article, The Renegades, on the New York Times. I highly, highly recommend it. It's a great article, and it really helped me with my research into the queer butch masculine community. I wish I could have spent more time researching this part of this video and really getting into it and deep diving. If you do want a full video essay about this, please let me know. I'll make that for you guys. I've been on a deadline, I'm sorry. But to quote the New York Times, butch has long been the name we've given a certain that kind of lesbian. The old ages applies. You know her when you see her. She wears men's clothing, short hair, no makeup. Butch is an aesthetic, but it also conveys an attitude and energy. both a gender and a sexuality. Butchness is about the body, but also transcends it. We exist in this realm of masculinity that has nothing to do with cis men. That's the part only we, butches, know how to talk about, says the 42-year-old writer, former Olympic swimmer and men's model Casey Legler. Many people don't even know how to ask questions about who we are or about what it means to be us. By refuting conventionally gendered aesthetics, butchness expands the possibilities for women of all sizes, races, ethnicities, and abilities. I always think of the first butch lesbian I ever saw, says 33-year-old actor Roberta Colindres. This beautiful butch came into the grocery store and she was built like a brick house. Short hair, polo shirt, cargo pants, and that ring of keys. It was the first time I saw the possibility of who I was. Butch lesbians have not only been isolated by the mainstream, but they've also been isolated by their own communities. There was a distinct subsection, I would love to make a whole video about this by the way, of white lesbian feminism who condemned butch lesbians and butch and femme relationships, accusing butch lesbians of being agents of the patriarchy, and that any butch femme relationship was essentially trying to replicate a heterosexual relationship. I mean, obviously I can't get all into this today because I'm running out of time, but the kicker is that all gender is literally a performance. Butch lesbians are performing masculinity just as much as heterosexual men are. 500 years ago, it was the norm for men to have long hair and wear makeup. But my final thoughts is that everything is always connected. No, it's true. Everything is always connected. That's sort of my general thought. I do think that the dislike and disdain towards female celebrities after they cut their hair short and their eventual redemption arcs when their hair grows back long is totally interlinked with misogyny. It's totally interlinked with binary beauty standards. Sorry, I don't really have that many final thoughts because my brain is literally not working properly, and the builders that are in my studio are deciding to cut using the loudest chainsaw ever. But my final thoughts are that be nicer to women who have short hair, and we gotta thank butch lesbians for breaking the binary, and we love you butch lesbians. But yes, I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. I actually really enjoyed researching and making it. Can you hear the drilling? Hopefully I'll be back with a more articulate video because I did make this in such a rush because I've been going through a lot of stress at the moment, but I'll fill you guys in on it one day. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video. Love the drilling, and I'll see you guys soon for another